In a world where discovery is only a click away, our senses are constantly enriched by the sights and sounds of distant cultures. From Instagram scrolls to global streaming, boundaries between East and West, North and South are dissolving, and nowhere is that cultural fusion more alive than in music. On October the 28th at 4 p.m. at the Desautels Concert Hall, the International Cello Festival of Canada celebrates this spirit of connection with two cellos, two worlds beyond the classics. This concert features two fearless innovators, Austrian artist-composer Matthias Bartolomey and Canadian cellist-composer Raphael Weinroth-Browne, in a program that fuses classical mastery with daring new sounds. Together, they'll premiere fresh works that push the cello far beyond tradition. The duo returns to the same stage on October the 30th at 7:30 p.m. for I've Got the World on a String, joining the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra in a bold meeting of strings and swings. And to top it all off, Bartolomey and Weinroth-Browne will be part of a spine-tingling Halloween special concert called Wood Shredding Cellists on October the 31st at 7:30 at St. John's Anglican Church. These performances promise to be unlike anything you've heard, a thrilling collision of classical precision, global rhythms, and unbridled creativity that will leave audiences spellbound. Whether you're a lifelong cello lover or just in it for the adventure, this music that just doesn't cross borders, it obliterates them. And joining me here in the class, well, I should say, and joining me here over Zoom, I am joined by one of the cellists, Raphael Weinroth-Browne. Hi, Raphael. Great to meet you here over Zoom.
Pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much for having me.
Mm. So, when I was prepping for the interview, one of the things that I was fascinated by was your fearlessness. You play cello, but you're very much a metalhead, and you're also very clearly influenced by music from the Middle East. I also read somewhere that your parents were pretty progressive. What was it like for you growing up playing cello and loving metal early on?
I think it just felt natural to me, to be honest, because all of those things felt sort of like a familiar part of my environment. So, yeah, my cello playing and my interest in metal and music from various parts of the world all sort of happened concurrently. So I think that the way that I play now and the type of music that I compose is just a sort of natural progression from the way I grew up and what I was exposed to.
Hmm. The other thing that really struck me was creativity. You compose, you collaborate with bands like Leprous and Apocalyptica, and you do shows with dancers, and you work with like pedals and effects on your cello. Is that why playing in an orchestra never appealed to you? It was just a little limiting?
Totally. Yeah, it just didn't feel like the right fit for me. I played in orchestras growing up and in university and in my during my grad studies, and I played in orchestras also in a professional setting, but not like a full-time, position or anything. I never thought that I wanted to pursue that as my career. It's not that I didn't like the repertoire, but I think I just didn't resonate with the experience of being in an orchestra and the sort of the type of career that it is. It kind of feels less about creativity and more about being able to execute very specific instructions based on score. And you're in an environment that, yeah, I guess it's not so much about having interesting sort of musical conversations or collaborations. It's more about sort of rendering this work, and you're like one small part of an
Mhm.
ensemble that does that. And I have a lot of respect for people who play in orchestras, and I love a lot of the repertoire. But I knew that where my strength lay was just in another place, and that it would be maybe better to leave orchestra playing to other people and to pursue something that really made me feel super alive and that excited me creatively. And so I think that all of my collaborations and my solo work and all of my current musical endeavors have just sort of stemmed from that desire to do something that I haven't seen other people doing necessarily, or to do some version that feels more potentially interesting or more personal to me. So I'm just constantly hungry to move in new directions and to try things that I haven't seen before and haven't heard before, and um, to surprise people, I think, as well, to surprise
Mm.
audiences with collaborations and combinations of things that aren't, they haven't been exposed to. So that really excites me. And I think doing the thing that other cellists may not be doing also feels somehow right to me. It's like my compass, my internal compass is guiding me in that direction.
Hmm. Hmm. I was talking about this before I pressed the record button. I'm a member of Gen X, and I grew up with bands like Metallica, Slayer, Maiden, all this kind of stuff. And this
Mm-hmm.
is something that I'm fascinated with. I've interviewed the violinist Rachel Barton Pine a couple of times. She's also very much a metal person. And in fact, the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra's composer in residence, Harry Stavroulakis, is also very much a lover of metal. In fact, he wrote a violin concerto for Rachel Barton Pine last year that she premiered that was inspired by metal. Do you think this is a trend that is going to be seen more and more in a classical realm as Gen Xers and people my age get older and start to incorporate those sounds?
Most likely, I think that every new generation has a more global awareness and understanding and acceptance of various forms of musical expression. And I certainly, as a millennial, I feel that again, all the bands you mentioned are bands that I listened to growing up, and they were very much part of my DNA, as a composer and as a player, and also as a player of other instruments besides the cello. So I think that we're just moving more and more into an awareness of everything that's out there, and it's for all the reasons that you cited in your preamble, actually, about um, having access to more
Mm.
music and more ideas and more perspectives, um, and more cultures as well. So I think that for instance, when I think of Gen Z, I think they actually have a greater knowledge than my generation ever had growing up, because they have so much more at their fingertips with the internet. Whereas for
Mhm.
us, it was still radio and TV, until the internet became more developed. And actually, it's interesting that you mentioned those metal bands too, because I gave a guest lecture on heavy metal and sort of the progression of the genre at Carleton University a couple of times for kids who are, I guess in their late teens to early 20s. And I noticed that a lot of them were familiar with a lot of the bands that I was talking about. It was kind of no surprise to them, to hear about these bands. Whereas I was actually slightly surprised that they knew about them, because I figured, okay, well, they may not all listen to metal, they may not all like it, but actually, I think they just have a broader awareness. So I think that inevitably will affect composition. It will affect classical music, because there's more and more people who grow up liking more than just classical music. And I think that comes from also growing up in cities and being in maybe more progressive environments, being exposed more to what's out there, and having friend groups that are also interested in those things. So it's like it's your social environment that affects your exposure, I think, to music as much as technology, because word of mouth is still the best way of disseminating art and getting people into anything, whether it's music or books or films or what have you. So I think that every generation will probably see a greater confluence of these styles and perspectives. And I think in the case of Harry, who you mentioned, who is a great composer and a friend, like I totally see eye to eye with him in terms of like how he thinks about composition, because like we have a similar background in terms of what we enjoyed listening to growing up, and what our sort of classical music background is like, and our training and whatnot. So there's like an overlap in terms of taste, but also in terms of perspective and uh, I guess how we perceive music, and what aspects of music excite us. So
Mhm.
I think that it's a combination of people having more exposure, but it's also really up to the composer to decide what what resonates with them. And I think that some people just naturally gravitate to certain styles because it fits their demeanor and their sort of personality. And so you can't really take that out of your work. It's like as a creative person, as a composer, you're always going to sort of channel what resonates most with you, whatever sort of frequency you happen to sort of vibrate on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I want to turn to the performances here in Winnipeg. Firstly, on the 28th at 4 p.m. at the Desautels Concert Hall, you're performing with Matthias in a concert called Two Cellos, Two Worlds, Beyond the Classics. How long have you and Matthias been friends and been aware of each other? Can you talk about that friendship a bit?
For sure, yeah. Matthias is an incredible cellist and composer. I'm a big fan of his work, huge fan, and I've been aware of his stuff, I guess since 2018, I think. Yeah, because we both performed at the Cello Biennale Amsterdam, which for those who don't know is an really like next level cello festival that happens every 2 years in Amsterdam. And that year, I got invited to perform with two of my groups, The Visit and Camacello. And the show that The Visit was playing was a double bill with Matthias's duo, Bartolomey and Weinroth-Browne,
Mm.
who are, a violin cello duo. So he performs with the violinist who also plays the mandola, which is it's kind of like a mandolin-like plucked instrument. And they're absolute fire together. Like those guys sound so good, and they're so tight, and their sound is so dialed in, and it combines such a range of different influences from classical to jazz to rock, and they do it with so much style and panache, and just really they really own it. They're really exciting to watch. So I became aware of his work prior to that show. And then we didn't really communicate at the show that we played. I think we were just very busy. I think that the guys had to head off quite quickly, but we stayed in touch just online afterwards, and expressed a lot of admiration for each other's work. And then he came to see one of my shows on tour with Leprous when we played in Vienna the next year, and we hung out. And then at this last Cello Biennale, which was November of 2024, we got to play together, and we were both playing on the festival. But there was a concert at the end where we performed a couple of his cello ensemble works, both of which we're going to play at the Cello Festival this year in Winnipeg, which is super exciting. So
Mm.
that was a nice opportunity to hang out more and chat more about our sort of musical perspectives. And yeah, it's really cool to sort of see how his approach to playing cello and incorporating elements of heavy music has manifested in his work, and sort of how it compares to mine. And it's really cool to compare notes with another string player that does something a bit non-traditional, because there's so few opportunities for that. And each one of us, I think, has had to sort of strike out on our own a little bit and figure out a unique way of doing this, of
Mm.
expressing these ideas, because there isn't really any sort of standard or general consensus on how to do it. So
Mm.
it's really cool to have those moments of learning from another person in that way, those exchanges which rarely happen. And so we played a duo piece called Licht, which we're going to do on this concert. And then we're also going to play a duo that I wrote called Triumvirate, which I haven't actually played that much. I wrote it for a Toronto-based duo. They've been playing that for almost 10 years. So it's going to be cool to actually play my own piece with Matthias, who I think is perfect for this. And we're also
Mm.
going to do some of our own solo works in that concert.
Mm. Let's talk about that comparison. Matthias's stuff, from what I gather, it's like it's more acoustic, and your stuff, from what I've seen on the internet, it's like you're working through pedals, like
Totally.
you're working with pedals. And from are there real drums or is it electric drums on your recording? And how are you going to duplicate that here in Winnipeg?
So the drum sounds are actually produced on the cello as well.
Oh wow.
So yeah, they're created using the pickup that I use on my cello. So yeah, you're absolutely correct in your assessment. Yeah, Matthias's stuff is more based around an acoustic cello sound, but it's like the techniques that he used that create a lot of size, this kind of massive sound. And there's like a lot of references or stylistic references. With my stuff, yeah, there's a different sort of signal chain happening where I'm still using the acoustic sound, but I'm also plugging my cello into effects pedals, and I'm also using a looper. So that changes the sort of sound world, as it were. And so I'm using a pickup, which allows me to plug into the pedal board. And the pickup is mounted on the bridge of the cello. So one day, when I was bored during a sound check, I realized that if I sort of knocked the pickup and then I flicked the bridge, that I could create this sort of like kick snare type sound, and that it just sounded like electronic drums. And so when I really got into live looping, which is a big part of what I do now, I decided to incorporate that technique into those pieces so that there would be an actual percussive element to help sort of define the structure a bit more. Because the thing about layered cello music is that it's beautiful, but sometimes it's a little bit like it doesn't have any bones in it a little bit. Like it needs this extra articulation. It needs something to sort of create a backbone or to define the rhythmic pulses and the groove a bit more. And for me, groove is a very intrinsic part of my writing, and it's something I really like to hear in music. So yeah, I do a lot with this percussion technique, and I also run it through a delay effect so that I can create more pulses than what I might otherwise be able to do naturally in real time. It kind of creates these little ghost notes. So that's definitely something that I incorporate. And on the record, then I also go a step further and I sometimes add some extra like samples to sort of enhance those sounds to make them a bit fatter. But it's all coming actually from the cello, and I play it that way live, and I loop those sounds on my shows.
So when you're on stage, you'll be there with your cello, and there'll be a bunch of pedals and in front of you, just
Yeah. Yeah. So you'll be
taking
able
care
to
of
see
that.
it all play out actually, which is kind of fun. I think it's kind of like a choreography with your feet a little bit. And so it's cool for the audience to be able to actually see what's going on and kind of see how it's made. So,
Mm,
this is actually one of my big gripes about a lot of electronic music. I mean, I think that electronic music is really cool, but if you can't sort of see the inner workings of it, or you can't see
yeah.
that someone is playing something, they're just sort of like running tracks on a laptop. For me, it loses a bit of interest. But like if you can see it's like maybe a modular synth, and you can kind of see all the patches and like where the sound is going, and sort of what they're doing, and like maybe they're on a keyboard or they're turning knobs or they're writing faders. Like that's more interesting to me. And I think it's similar with live looping, because you can see when a loop is starting, when it's ending, when it's fading out. You can see when maybe I'm riding a fader with my foot, or I'm changing an effect, or whatever it is. So I think that's
Huh.
as much part of the performance as the playing, and actually often requires a lot of brain power to focus on
Yeah.
that while playing.
So that is going to be the concert on the 28th at 4 p.m. at the Desautels Concert Hall. Audiences can check that out. It sounds super excellent and awesome. Then on the 30th, you and Matthias, along with cellists Xander Howard Scott and Samuel Nadarak, are going to be joining the WJO on stage for a concert called I've Got the World on a String. What's the music going to be like for this concert? Have you seen the charts yet? Is it straight up standards? What is this going to be like?
It's going to be pretty eclectic, I think, because it's going to be a combination of pieces that are quite contemporary, that are not really meant to be done with jazz band, and then some more traditional jazz stuff, including Rhapsody in Blue, actually, done on cello. Matthias
Oh,
is going to be
wow.
playing that, yeah, with the jazz orchestra. Whereas, like, actually, my performance with them will be elements, it will be tracks from my album Lifeblood that I just released earlier this month, but arranged as these sort of cello concerto pieces. So I'll be playing as a soloist, doing the lead lines of those pieces with the orchestra playing like an arrangement of what's on the album, which
Oh,
is
wow.
super different from anything that I would have imagined when I created it. And it's going to be a whole other take. So I'm excited to do that. I think it's going to be maybe a singular occurrence, which also makes it worth checking out because yeah, you may never see that particular collaboration and that iteration of those pieces again. Yeah, so I think it's gonna be really cool. It's also very unusual to see cello integrated with kind of more horn-based jazz. It happens so seldom, and I can understand why from various perspectives. I mean, brass are just so powerful that we
Yeah.
we kind of don't stand a chance against them a little bit. But I think that strings in jazz music are really cool, and I've done a lot of work in string quartets, for instance, playing on jazz albums and arranging for stuff like that. And I think, I mean, I'd love to just see it more, and I've met a lot of fantastic jazz players who are really good um, improvising soloists, playing violin, for instance, who are really incredible.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool to see that sort of convergence and that foray into that world. And I'm curious to see what kind of audience it will attract and how people will feel about it all. And that's the fun of new combinations and experiments. But I can't speak to all the pieces because I haven't heard them, and I think in some cases they're premieres. So it will be a really out there show with a range of like more traditional jazz and then some really out there sort of mashups or convergences of jazz band and cello. So
Sounds super great. I should also mention the Halloween special, Wood Shredding Cellists. That concert's happening on the 31st. You're going to be part of a cello ensemble that consists of the cello section of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, as well as all of the featured cellists for the Cello Festival. What are you looking forward to about performing in this concert?
many things. I think it's going to be a really cool show. I haven't done a cello ensemble concert with that many people. Well, that's not entirely true. At the Cello Biennale, we did do one with a lot of cellists, which was really cool. But there's going to be quite a range of repertoire on this concert, and there's going to be some really amazing cellists, like some real
Yeah.
heavy hitters. And so I'm excited that I get to be on a show and play with them. That's like, I'm a little nervous too. It's a really great lineup of cellists, and it features one of my pieces, and it features some
Mhm.
of Matthias's pieces, and we're going to play that stuff in the second half of the concert. It's going to
Yeah,
be a whole range. Yeah,
can you talk about Aftermath?
for sure. Yeah, it's a really early work of mine. I think I was 19 when I wrote it, and I was actually so Paul Marlene, the artistic director, was my teacher then when I was studying at the University of Ottawa, and so I wrote this piece, and it wasn't really meant to be performed by anyone specifically. I think I wrote it for my composition class, and um, I was very inspired by um, like a lot of sort of technical progressive metal that I was listening to at the time. It had a lot of intricate rhythms and time signatures and key changes, and it's also got some really dense, complex harmonies that you would hear maybe more in jazz. Sort of like big ambient sections. It's a piece that is in sort of five sub movements that all run together attacca, so without a break. And it's sort of like the instrumental um, narrative to a post-apocalyptic landscape. So it sort of depicts this world where civilization has fallen, and there's like sort of few survivors, and it's almost like from the perspective of the last human on Earth potentially, and it has a lot of sadness and some very sort of lamentation based moments, and other parts that are very very rhythmically dynamic and extremely intricate. And so when I was at U Ottawa, we had the chance to do a concert where the students got to have their compositions played. So we happened to have 13 cellists in the class. So I said, well, why not just get all of them on this piece, and we can just perform it, have the entire cello class come on stage and do it. And that's what we did. And it was a great success, and people liked it a lot. So the school actually subsidized a recording of this piece where
Oh,
we
wow.
all went into this big church nearby and made a video of it. And since then, it's been performed by the class at U Ottawa many times since I graduated, but also I've played it in other cities, and other folks have played it, and it's been quite a long time since I've played this piece. But yeah, it'll be exciting to come back and do it after so long, and to do it with an amazing group of
Yeah.
players. So that's like I'm still just wrapping my head around that a little bit, but I think it's going to be really fun, and I hope that everybody likes it. They don't think it's a load of trash, but I feel like I think that the audience will probably like it. I think it's an exciting piece of music, and it has a whole emotional arc.
Amazing. This has been great. I'm going to wrap up the conversation by asking, you've been to Winnipeg before. You were here for
Mm-hmm.
the New Music Festival. What are you
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to about coming back?
Well, I gotta say, I really like the scene in Winnipeg, and I think that audiences are incredibly supportive. And I had a fantastic experience in January 2024, when I played a few concerts for the New Music Festival. I really felt that people were there for everything. They were just really receptive, that audiences in Winnipeg really care about all kinds of music, and that they really support the scene. They support the local festivals. And it's cool to have a community like that. And I think it's really important, um, for especially Canadian cities, because they're so few and far between. And um, it really gave me the sense of identity. It's like, people in Winnipeg really um, have made a choice to be there and to support what's happening in their city, and to um, identify with it and take pride in it. And as someone from Ottawa, I think that that's very inspiring. And I think also people from Ottawa, who are part of the music scene and who go to concerts and whatnot, could learn something from this as well, because there's a lot of transients here. There's a lot of people who come for school and they leave. There's a lot of people who are in, foreign affairs, and they leave. So there's less of a sense of, okay, well, no, this is our city, and like we've chosen to be
Mm,
here. And so I think there's like this kind of um, real, almost like a work ethic, like a bootstrapping attitude, and like a real genuine support for the arts that I feel in Winnipeg, that I'm looking forward to experiencing again, and hopefully reconnecting with some folks that I saw last time that I was there. And um, yeah, I think it'll be really cool. So it's also just a nice opportunity to go, because it is far away, and it's hard to just go there, and it's a nice chance to be there for an extended period, and yeah, play lots of shows, and be very immersed. So yeah, I'm excited.
Raphael, this has been really terrific. All the best on the three concerts that you're doing here for the International Cello Festival of Canada. Thanks so much for making the time to sit down and talk to me today. It's been a real treat.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, and hope to see you at the festival.
Absolutely.